The Western Cape High Court has ruled in favour of Bromwell Street residents in Woodstock, Cape Town. Ndifuna Ukwazi challenged the constitutionality of the city's housing programme. Bromwell Street residents have been resisting eviction since 2014. Joining us now for an update on the matter is Ms. Disha Govender, who is Ndifuna Ukwazi's Law Centre head. Ms. Govender, thank you for your time this afternoon. It's been a number of years since 2014 that the residents of Bromwell have been, resisting this push that has been made to move them out of their homes. How has this affected them as a community?
Thanks for having me. I think you can never underestimate the anxiety and stress that is caused to a community that feels under threat. And in relation to our clients, the Bromwell Street residents who have lived in those properties for generations, 5 generations actually, the risk of being uprooted from the community and the support systems that they have in place there has taken an incredible toll on them. Yet despite that, their resilience and their willingness to resist and actually stand up for themselves and in the process for others in fighting against being displaced and actually calling for accountability is really inspiring.
Now that land has been sold. Give us a little bit of background as to who owns the land currently, who it was sold to, and what the arrangements are that are being made for the residents who are being evicted.
So the land was sold back in 2015, I think is when the transfer of property ownership actually happened. It was sold by the Sims family to the Woodstock Hub, which is a private company which intended to develop the land for housing as well. However, it would have targeted a higher income bracket. They are still the current owners, and they actually were the first respondents in the application which was brought. The application that we assisted the residents with was specifically actually in relation to getting relief from the city in terms of having the city provide them with emergency accommodation in a location as close as feasibly possible. So as things presently stand, our clients are still in their homes in Bromwell Street. When the application was launched, there was also an order that was sought staying the eviction. And in terms of the current judgment and order, the eviction remains stayed until such time as the city provides our clients with the emergency housing or transitional housing as ordered.
What's quite important to note here, Ms. Govender, is it's not just any housing that will do, because the city has actually made provision for housing, but the residents of Woodstock are saying that this is not the type of housing that they want and need. What exactly are they calling for?
So I think let's just be a little bit clear and specific in relation to the specific housing that was called for in this case. Was something called emergency housing or transitional housing. It is housing that the city is obligated to provide to people who are being evicted into homelessness. So that is the housing that the court has ordered the city to provide. And this differs. It does differ to, for instance, more permanent housing typologies, like, for instance, the B&G housing that gets provided or the social housing that gets provided by the state in terms of those national housing programs. But I think underpinning everything is that what this case shows is people fighting for a dignified housing and a dignified existence. And that part of the call for the housing that they would like is obviously in relation to not being uprooted and relegated to the outskirts of the city. So it's hard at this stage to specifically say what specific structure that would look like or where that would be placed, but that is something that the city has to consider in complying with the court order.
It is a victory for the residents, at least for this round of it. And what does this mean not only for them, but for other communities in South Africa that might find themselves in a similar situation?
So I think what this case has done is, like I said, it has highlighted the issue of people being forced out of existing communities and homes, and the actual desperate need for not just only emergency housing, because you're going to be rendered homeless in an emergency situation, but at the root cause of it, the lack of actual affordable housing that's out there, which actually leaves people in a position of nowhere else to go and needing to depend on state assistance. The implications of the specific judgment that are broader than, for instance, just the relief that has been granted to our clients is hinged on the declaratory order that the court made, where it declared that the city's emergency housing program and the way in which it has implemented that program in relation to, for instance, evictees being evicted from the Woodstock, Salt River inner city area is unconstitutional. So the implication is that the city has to fix that unconstitutionality. And one would hope that in the rethink of their policies and the way in which they respond to emergency housing needs, that they will also, be recognizing the other obligations that are intertwined with the obligation to progressively realize access to adequate housing for people, and would be looking at, for instance, things like, are there policies and practices actually perpetuating spatial injustice, and how better to respond, basically. And that is something that isn't unique and shouldn't be something uniquely considered by, for instance, the city of Cape Town, but all municipalities who have this duty when it comes to evictees who are going to be evicted into homelessness.
Ms. Disha Govender, thank you very much for that update. She is from Ndifuna Ukwazi and is the head of the Law Centre there. A victory for the people of Bromwell, specifically regarding this particular case, the city of Cape Town having to provide decent temporary housing for the community.